Hello and welcome to video 5 in this mini crash course on understanding the basics of sheet music notation. In this video, we'll be going through repeats, Volta brackets, navigation notation, which includes portals, targets and midway destinations. So let's get started. Navigation and repetition notation in music helps us to navigate through a piece of music by telling us what parts to repeat or jump to or jump forward to, forward and back, and play. Now we'll just be going through the main ones you'll most likely use, and firstly we'll start with repeats. With how modern music is structured today in terms of repetition, such as verse, chorus, you'll find the repeat sign incredibly useful. Rather than transcribe the entire section all over again, wasting time and paper, you'll add a start and end repeat sign. The open repeat is a thick then thin line followed by a colon, and a closed repeat is a colon followed by a thin then thick line. These are super easy to spot. Now sometimes you won't see an open repeat symbol, and that's because you repeat from the beginning of the piece of music. So let's move on to Volta brackets first and second endings. So Volta brackets gives a repeated section a secondary ending. The first ending is labelled with 1 and the second ending is labelled with a 2. So here we have an example piece with 5 bars with Volta brackets, first and second endings. And here is how it is played. The first 3 bars are played. The fourth bar is the first ending, then we hit the repeat sign. We then head back to the beginning of the piece and play the first 3 bars all over again. Now because we've already played the first ending, we don't play that again. We skip ahead and we go to the second ending. So if you notice how we don't have an open repeat, and that's because we go back to the beginning of the piece of music. So let's move on to more complicated navigation, which out of all we've learned about sheet music, I feel as though is the most difficult to grasp. Navigation. Sometimes navigational notation can be really overwhelming to a beginner, as travelling back and forth in a piece of music can be confusing. Therefore, I like to think of navigational notation having 3 purposes: to act as a portal, a target, or a midway destination. So let's quickly list each of these. So for portals, we have da capo, dal segno and da coda. For our targets, we have al fine and al coda, and our midway destinations are segno and coda. So let's start with the portals and explain what they are. So we have 3 possible portals. 2 are primary and 1 is secondary. And the only difference between the 2 is that the secondary requires you to have travelled through a primary portal first. Now first one is da capo, which is labelled as DC on sheet music, and what that means is from the top, and it is a primary portal. So by using DC on sheet music, you're telling the performer to repeat the music from the very beginning. Now dal segno, labelled as DS, means from the sign and is also a primary portal. By using DS on sheet music, you're telling the performer to repeat the music just played from the nearest segno sign. And the segno sign is a midway destination, but we'll cover that in a moment. Now lastly, we have da coda, which is from tail, from the end, and it is a secondary portal. By using da coda on sheet music, you're telling the performer to jump forward to an ending passage marked by a coda sign, which is also a midway destination. However, for this portal to work, you have to have travelled through a DC or DS portal first. So to summarise portals, DS and DC portals are portals back in time, so you can repeat history, and our coda is to the future, to something new. Now our primary portals, DC and DS, are phrased with a target on sheet music. So let's have a look at targets. Now we have two possible targets. Al-fine means to the end. By using al-fine on sheet music, you're telling the performer to repeat until you reach the word fine, but when you reach the word fine, the piece ends. So that one's relatively easy. Now al-coda means to the tail, and by using al-coda on sheet music, you're telling the performer to repeat until they reach da coda, and as we know, da coda is a secondary portal, which then tells you to jump forward to an ending passage marked by the coda sign. And lastly, we have midway destinations. Now we've already mentioned them as segno and coda. Now midway destinations are reached once you've been through a portal and the marked sign on sheet music. And here's what the sign looks like. So to the left we have a segno sign, and to the right we have a coda sign. Now the segno sign will only work if you've been through a primary portal labelled as DS. For the coda sign to work, you have to go through a primary portal ending with the target al-coda. You then play until you reach the secondary portal da coda, and then you jump forward to the coda sign. So let's go through some possible transitions, because they can be rather confusing to follow or imagine in your head. So I've put together 4 examples of possible transitions for navigational notation in sheet music, just so you can see how exactly they work. So our first one is DC al-fine to fine, which means play from the beginning until the phrase fine. Our second one is DC al-coda to da coda to the coda sign, which means play from the beginning until the phrase da coda, and at da coda you jump forward to the coda sign and play to the end. DS al-fine, segno to fine, means play from the nearest segno sign until you reach the word fine and the piece ends. And lastly, we have DS al-coda to the segno sign to da coda to the coda sign, which is the lengthy one. So here we play from the nearest segno sign until the phrase da coda, at decoder we jump forward to the coda sign and then we finish. So now it's your turn. We've reached the end of the basics of sheet music notation. So what can you do next? Well, now you can hopefully go and try and transcribe your own music or learn other people's music. So I hope you go on to create some awesome music with this new knowledge. So good luck and get creating. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a beautiful thumbs up or subscribe to the channel below, and any questions, leave them in the comments below.